Reddit. What's your anyways, we're married now story? Right after our first kiss he said, I'm not looking to get married. Neither am I replied. So anyway, we're married now. Task failed successfully. Met a girl online about 20 years ago one summer after college. Found out we live in nearby towns. So decided to get together. Go out on a few dates. Drive by local preschool. Me. Hey, that's where I went to preschool. Ho, that's where I went to preschool. That day we find a preschool class photo. There we are 2 feet from each other. A few months later, my dad finds some old footage of a Christmas play our preschool class put on. We're standing right next to each other. Met a girl online about 20 years ago. I was like haha bullshit there wasn't internet no. Wait. My great-grandparents met because my great-grandfather was delivering the newspaper to my great-grandmother's house and her brother though he was trespassing and tried shooting at him. My great-grandmother felt bad and bought him lunch. They were together for over 75 years and lived a very happy life. Good thing your great-great-uncle wasn't a good shot. Took him 75 years before he finally mastered the gun. When we first met, his first words to me were I'm gonna wife you. And I scoffed. Anyways, we're married now. In college, this girl like fell on me. I was sitting beneath her bed watching a movie in her dorm room by ourselves as a bro night. I thought she was super cute, but I didn't really think I had much of shot with her. We had also just become friends not too recently before that, and I didn't want to ruin this nice connection we had been developing. In any case, she kinda jumped on top of me. I had been a wrestler in high school, and she had mentioned before how she wanted to pin me. She definitely didn't pin me though, even being out of practice in college. I still, gently, kicked her a. Later on that girl said she really missed a cuddle partner and wanted to spend the night in my arms, which I assumed to be non-romantic cuddling. I declined worried that I'd made it awkward somehow. It took me a bit to put those pieces together. In any case we're soon to be married now. Edit. For anyone wondering how I finally figured it out, she literally had to tell me. After I told her I wasn't sure if be a great platonic cuddle buddy, she explicitly told me that she was looking for more. I had figured she might, but I didn't want to be guess wrong and potentially mess up our friendship. We've been together ever since. I was flying short-haul domestic, 1.5-hour flight. I was sat next to this beautiful woman and I found myself doing the opposite of what I'd normally do in that situation. I made small talk with her. We chatted for the entire flight, and we both seemed to not want it to end, but end the flight did, and we parted ways without even exchanging numbers. She was a visitor to the country and I expected never to see her again. A few weeks later, I'm boarding an international flight, and there she is, on the plane, about 10 rows in front of me. After takeoff, I asked the lady next to her if she'd like to swap seats with me. As I had an empty seat next to mine she accepted. We spent a 12-hour flight chatting again. This time a lot more deeply. Anyways, one thing led to another and we got married less than 3 months later. Unfortunately, that's not the end of the story. She passed away less than a year after we were married. But that time we had together was perfect. Every last second of it. My dad threw a paper airplane at the back of my mom's head in college. She told him to grow up. Anyways, they've been married now for over 36 years. Co-worker's boyfriend's brother came up to stay with them. We have to have you out for dinner with him. You have a lot in common. He likes nerdy things too. You are not allowed to date him though. Definitely dated and married him. Co-worker and now brother-in-law broke up around the time we got engaged. He's better without her. He came to the door to borrow my sister's textbook. No one would answer the door so I dragged myself out of bed and answered the door in nightgown and curlers. Hey, it was the early 80s, okay? He told me was there to see my sister. Without a word I nodded, turned around and screamed sister, turned back around, said family intercom system completely deadpan, and left him standing on the porch while I went back to bed. Married me anyway. 38 years on the 21st. I met my husband when I got a new job at a grocery store and the guy from the deli came up and yelled at me for hanging up on customers when I couldn't figure out the phone transfer process. He was that guy from the deli and anyway we're married now. I literally dread when anyone calls my work and asks to be transferred. I rarely do it and I don't think I've ever done it successfully. I give them the right number first and say, and now I'll try to transfer you. Call that number. If I accidentally hang up, pretty sure I hang up every time. So when my wife and I were dating, she got pneumonia and didn't have health insurance. Asked her to elope to get on my insurance and 2 weeks later we're married. Made a Reddit account just for this. 20 years ago, an exchange student transferred to my school for the year. And although we didn't talk a lot, we had so much in common and it was really nice to be able to talk with someone who had super different views on life. We actually both played the same instrument. We had the same model guitar, surprisingly. Anyways, she went back to her home country after the year was over, and I never spoke with her again. However, she got me fascinated with her culture, so I researched a bit, and eventually a year later I was able to transfer to her country through a program. I got placed in a random school throughout the entire country. I joined the school's light music club, and as I'm walking in on the first day there, I open the door and guess who I see? The same girl playing the F out of her guitar. I kid you not, as soon as we made eye contact, I just sat there with my jaw open in disbelief. I dropped my guitar to the floor, causing a chip that I can still see to this day. Haha. Anyways, fast forward to today and we're married. Why fast me to add this part? We ended up forming a band for the school's summer show, and after our performance backstage, with all the adrenaline running through our veins, we confessed our feelings. It's not as romantic as you'd think. From an outside view it was probably seen as two awkward teens pecking. We both were sweaty and smelly, and I had face makeup all over me. Haha. She makes fun of me saying that I would have never had the guts otherwise. But seriously, what are the chances? We met in the psychiatric hospital. Anyways, we're married now, 30 years this June. In 2nd grade, I was voted class favorite. Why was this ever a thing? Horrible idea for kids' self-esteem, along with a weird fella who I had trouble believing anyone even voted for because he was quite reserved and bland. In the 5th grade I remember the same guy getting called to the front of the class to write his answer on the board. He was awkward and dressed accordingly. The girl seated behind me very quietly commented MMMM. His booty looked like it'd be eating his pants. Only I heard this, but it was a humorously accurate observation. After 5th grade I never saw him, heard from him again until we were 21. He showed up at my house to purchase a vehicle we had for sale after my dad passed exactly 1 month earlier. I only recognized him after my mom wrote his name on a receipt for purchasing the car. I reminded him of our time as class favorite and my mom made a show of breaking out the yearbooks. Anyways, we're happily married now. I had a cold and went on a date to an Irish pub. I was eating bangers and mash and had the urge to cough. I tried to keep my mouth shut, but just wound up spraying his face with gravy and mashed potatoes through my pursed lips. I was still coughing, so I took a sip of my drink to soothe my throat. It was beer. Bubbles tickled my throat more. I also spit that all over his face. He stared at me in disgusted horror as gravy, mashed potatoes and beer dripped down his face onto his shirt. I laughed and laughed and laughed, making my apologies sound very insincere. Anyways, we're married now. Thank goodness our booth had high backs so only he suffered. I tripped and rolled down a hill, embarrassing myself in front of my girlfriend and her roommate. Anyways, the roommate and I are married now. You could say you fell for her. On our first date he tried showing off by drifting down a gravel road and tore through a ranch fence. Anyway, we're married now. So you married Jeremy Clarkson. Fun. I was working at a video game shop, and he was hired to DJ the midnight release of a game I didn't care for. He comes in, waits in the giant line of people finalizing their pre-order before midnight. When he gets to the register, I ask him if he's here for the premiere, but he says he wouldn't be caught dead playing that game, and proceeds to purchase a different, older game I later find out he already has. He asks me when I finish my shift, and to swing by the DJ table when I'm off. I do indeed swing by, and now we've been married going on 5 years with 2 cats and a recently purchased home. He proposed by sticking the ring inside the case of the game he bought that night. My neighbor invited me to a cookout and he was like, by the way, my wife's cousin is here. She kinda wants you two to date or whatever. and ate weeded. She's been by my side through my drug addiction as she stayed sober from alcohol. She called DCFS on me and had my daughter, from a previous marriage, taken from my custody and into my second mom's care when I was very strung out. If it weren't for that slap in the face by reality, I wouldn't have ever gotten sober. She not only saved me, but my daughter and I's relationship as well. I got clean, my daughter back, and now I'm in school to be a social worker. I'm doing much better now, and she and I got married on the 4th of July last year. We celebrated the birth of our second daughter, my second, her first, even though she's a wonderful stepmom to my oldest daughter, on the 3rd of July this year, and our first wedding anniversary was about a month ago. I love that woman so damn much, and both my girls. You know that moment at church the pastor says now stand up and say hi to someone you never met. Anyways, we're married now. I moved to China to teach middle school. Was introduced to another teacher while we were still in the Beijing airport. So anyway, we're married now and have adopted 2 kids from Korea. We met in elementary school. I transferred schools before high school and we lost touch. Found out we had enrolled at the same university, in the same program, once university classes started. Now we're married. Met him in high school while he was hitting on my identical twin sister. Anyways, we're married now. Does he know that he married you and not your sister? I swiped right on someone who was the exact opposite of my type. Short, big teeth, not ambitious, really skinny. He was leaving town the morning after our date. He was a good half hour late to the date, muttered softly, and was bad with eye contact. I only went on the date because I'd had really effed up stuff happen to me and I just wanted one date with someone that wasn't going to lead to anything, just to feel normal. Anyway, we just had our first kid. Shortly after we met he asked me, do you trust me? I said, laughed and said no. We're married now. Sounds like my story. I got a random text that said, can you keep a secret? To which I replied honestly, no. Turns out my mechanic stole my number off a service sheet which could get him fired. Anyways, we're married now. So my brother's college roommate called me for legal advice because his crazy ex was being super crazy. Anyway, we're married now, 7 years come November, 2 kids and a house. So, back in the 70s our families moved to a new farming town. Our church was doing a fundraiser by planting potatoes which would then be sold to help with building costs. Parents were busy and put us toddlers in a dry empty cattle watering tank trough. Anyways, we're married 25 years now. Sounds like my grandparents' story. Grew up in a small farm town. Both their moms had babies at the same time and introduced them. Grandpa grabbed my grandma's hand and wouldn't let go. Anyways, they were married like 60 years and just recently reunited in heaven. I had just started dating this guy, and he came over to hang out. My roommate was being about her coworker Pam. So I said, who names their kid Pam anyway? F people named Pam. My date says my mom's name was Pam. His dead mom. Anyways, we're married now. I was in 8th grade and she was a year younger. I had a thing with her best friend. Was walking home with said best friend when she joined us. Absolutely lost it inside when I saw her. Look so beautiful and cute walking home with her violin in hand. Her parents had a rule about dating till she was 16. They came around eventually, not for a few tough years. Today was 8 years together, known and been hooked on each other for 11. Getting married May of 2022. I still wake up every day and realize how absolutely lucky I am to have her.